I think we could have done better due diligence. We were a victim of the market too, right? I mean, you don't go into buying a condo building and expect 43 foreclosures in the building. You just don't expect that. And so we had to shift. We had to look at different ways that we had to figure out, how do we make this investment good? How do we get out of it? How do we breathe? And we went to town on that. And it really fueled my passion for education.
Hello, my investor listeners, and welcome to another episode of the Freedom Blueprint. Today, I have with me Katie Kim from Austin, Texas. Katie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me. A pleasure.
I am very excited. Katie is a friend of mine, and she is an experienced developer and investor, so I'm very excited for all that she has to share. And I want to make sure that you are hearing from all of our amazing guests and also the episodes where I share my own experience and wisdom. So if you haven't already, please make sure to like this episode and subscribe wherever you are listening. If it's on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube, make sure to subscribe because we're putting 2 episodes a week out right now for you. And I want to make sure you get all that really, really helpful content. So as we get started here with Katie, I would love, Katie, for you to just kind of tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today. What's your background and where did you end up going in the real estate investing world?
Yes, I love it. So I grew up in a construction real estate development family. And usually what I say is that involved a lot of child labor law, right? Like I would go to volleyball practice and then be building walls or soccer and shingling a roof. I mean, we did fix and flip was really our family bonding time. I mean, that's pretty much, which was great because I didn't know anything different. So then like a lot of kids that are, good at math and science and not wanting to stay in their hometown and take over the family business, I went away to college, went to pre-med, switched to computer science, graduated, moved to Chicago, went to work for a big consulting company. And I actually went in their technology labs, so Accenture Technology Labs, where I worked in their research and innovation department. And basically we worked with technology 3 to 5 years to market and found strategic profitable solutions and then implemented them. And that's as fast as I can tell you without putting you to sleep or keeping you engaged here. And I loved going into these corporations and figuring out what was wrong, what was not working, how could we give you a strategic edge with a little bit of technology, and then actually doing it and tracking it. And then I career shifted after about 7-8 years where I went to work for a startup company. And I love the opportunity to get into more data analytics and just dive into the details. And then when they got bought out by a big company, I thought, what are we going to do now? I'm not so sure I want to go into corporate world again. I liked the entrepreneurial side, the startup company. And my mother was like, you've invested in real estate, because I'd moved to Chicago. I bought a condo. The next year I bought another condo, and then I bought another condo. So every year I just was starting to add, because you kind of can't get out of that mentality once you start getting into real estate investing. And so when it's in your blood, it's in your blood. And so I said, no, I've never thought about, coming home, running the family company. I really love Chicago. And after a while, my husband and I started thinking about it, and we wanted to get into the development side of real estate investing. That was our negotiation to move home was, you teach us the development side, we'll come run the company. And after about 10 years of running the construction company, I realized I wasn't being fulfilled. I wasn't really living my passion and living my best life, if you will. And that really came down to, just something was missing. And if you've been there in your life, you know it. And you just don't feel the passion anymore. And so I went to really dig in. And we launched a developer for fee program where we help guide and teach people how to do developments and or do developments for them. And so we hold their hand through the whole entire process. And that to me was so fulfilling. It was amazing to bridge really all the experiences that I had in my life, working at Accenture, finding those strategic opportunities and, really putting that strategy in place for businesses, and even the entrepreneur side, your startups, and learning how each of those corporations work, how to put that into a deal, how to campaign for the deal and the development. And I loved doing that. Then putting economic incentives and all the different things we bring into our development programs, especially when we're dealing with small businesses, to help them do deals that are financially viable. And continued always to invest. I mean, we still invest in our projects. We invest in some of our clients' projects if we're asked and given that opportunity, and really started to look at how do I build our portfolio from an investment standpoint and a real estate equity standpoint on really different ways that people always talk about diversification. When we talk about diversification is I want to diversify my portfolio. So focusing on now cash flow, focusing on future appreciation. And then I also focus on the diversification of product type mix. So have some commercial, have some residential, some multifamily, some industrial, and really give that gamut of the diversification. So as I say, really, I take where beginning of my career to now, every experience is really built on itself. But for having those different opportunities, I would not be able to be where I'm at right now and give that depth and breadth of service and education and knowledge to my clients and or bring it to the deals for my investors and my team.
Right. That is quite the journey that you have gone on, and a lot that you're bringing to your situations today. So as you look back on history, I'd love for us to maybe get a little more micro into some of these instances. Specifically, what can be really helpful for listeners is going into some pivotal moments or decisions, where things shifted. So I wonder if you could think back and identify a pivotal moment or decision that's had a big impact on your investing journey and where you are today.
Yes, that's a great question because I feel that we learn a lot more from our scars than we do from our successes. And it's always so great to talk about the wins. Like everybody wants to know about the cool projects and putting it all together. And really, I go back when you say pivotal to me, there's always a pain point. And I was reading Outwitting the Devil, and I had there was a point in it where it talks about failure and visual learner. So I had this idea that it's like, okay, here's your failure point. And there's three options, right? You can pivot, you can plant the seed for future success, or you can truly fail and stop. Right. And when I think of that pain point, it was really early on in my real estate investing career where it was the second deal. I mean, the first deal was amazing. And it was my primary residence that I invested in, then later leased out. But my second deal we went into, and it was in Chicago. I did not have my real estate license yet. I always pref that. So I went in thinking, well, I grew up in this industry. I know how to do this. I know how to evaluate deals. But when you grow up on the construction side and the worker side, you don't necessarily know the strategy and the business side of the deal. And that's where I feel a lot of even our clients are at a lot of time, where they own a construction company or they do maintenance work or they have some kind of like doer part of it, but they don't know the business side of it. And I definitely feel passionate with them because of this pivotal point. It was actually the first deal Charles and I did before we got married. So that was kind of I'm going in like a legal deal before we went to a marriage deal together. And we went in on a property together. And this gave me so much insight into do your research, right? Don't over leverage, know the market, all those things that we teach and we talk investors and we talk to real estate agents about. We got sold by the deal, right? We got sold by this is great. It's a great opportunity. It's new construction. They gave us a tenant for, I think it was a year or 2 years at an amazing rate. So the cash flow was great for the first 2 years, but we didn't do our due diligence to look and see what are other rates, not just in the building. We looked at the building because they gave that to us, right? But we didn't look around it. And so we also was perfect timing. And I say that not with positivity, because then 0809 hit in the third year of this investment. And that's where being over leveraged, not knowing the skills to have to pivot and shift. We were in a investment that had, I could probably reference the article, the Chicago magazine about it, but I think we had 42 or 43 foreclosures in the building in 1 year.
Wow.
So yeah, digest that for a second. So trying to refinance that is impossible. And of course, all these foreclosures, the rents, I mean, they're giving them away, right? To get a body in there. And so one, I think we could have done better due diligence, but it was also, we were a victim of the market too, right? I mean, you don't go into buying a condo building and expect 43 foreclosures in the building. You just don't expect that. And so we had to shift. We had to look at different ways. We had to figure out how do we make this investment good? How do we get out of it? How do we breathe? And we went to town on that, and it really fueled my passion for education. And so at that pain point, I'm like, I'm never not going to know going into a situation. And I really leaned into I call it now my E to E ratio, my entertainment to education ratio. Like I want to be learning more than I'm entertaining my brain. And I got my real estate license. I eventually went and got my CCIM designation. I went to a lot of investor networks and really enhanced my skill set on everything real estate, investment, incentives, economic incentives, and your regular incentives that you do in deals. I became a student of the game. And that's when I realized that there are so many people in this industry that they want to sell you that really surface level information, or they want to give you the surface level, close the deal. And it's kind of BS in my mind, because I've had that pain point, which really created that pivot and my trajectory, that hockey stick growth of my knowledge to bring that to my clients. And so I do become very mama bear-ish. There's no better analogy for that than like when somebody's trying to pull one over on my clients, I get super protective and I want to go to the mat for them. That's where it really stems from, that pain point, that pivotal point in my life where I do not want to go into a deal until we exhaust the due diligence and make sure we're completely educated on everything about the situation to the best of our knowledge at that point in time. There's always things that happen, environmental, economic, all those different things that you can't control. But as much as that we can control into that deal, I want to be that source and be that reference and that mentor for my clients and coach them through those spots, because I've been through that pain. And I don't ever want to go through it again. And I don't ever want any of my clients to go through it.
Well, what ended up happening? So, like, were you in an adjustable rate mortgage that you needed to refi out, or what ended up happening with that property when you were facing those pain points?
Yeah. So, well, we talked with the banks and we said, hey, this is where we're at. This is the situation. Again, at the time, we still had a good paying tenant. We were still paying our bills. Everything was fine. We see the trajectory, right? And so they basically told us, stop paying your mortgage. We won't talk to you until you stop paying your mortgage and get into default. And I was like, oh my gosh, our credit's going to go to crap and all that. And we ended up going on a path of a short sale. And I reference that with my clients because I want them to know, like, there are ways you get out of it. They're not great. They're not sexy. They're not good, but you have to work with your team. And, we got out of it as fast as we could. We were very blessed to have a good real estate team that listed it, and only a couple months, and we had it under contract and sold. So we were able to get out of it quick, but it did take a hit, right? When you go through those situations. But then it's, how do you rebuild, and how do you rebuild back stronger and better and learn from it, right? And so some people would say like, oh my gosh, you shouldn't share that story. I said, why not? We have to share our pain so people learn from it and people know the passion and where we come from, right? And that to me I think it's vital to share your scars as much as your successes.
Right. Nobody has 1,000 batting average. So there's going to be something.
No,
might as well share it.
And
well, thank you so much for sharing that one, Katie. That is helpful for our listeners out there. And I'm curious if you would share, it sounds like your approach has changed over the years, right? Your strategy's changed. Do you want to speak to that a little bit about that evolution?
Yeah. So kind of that and really the second pivotal point in my career and my journey was in managing the construction company. There's so many times that we had aspiring developers or small business owners come into our office and want to build their business, expand their business, develop a building, but they only had so much money to either buy the building and or expand their operations. Being like, they shouldn't have an if-then situation. Like, we should have systems and process and ways to figure this out. And so I took my nerd brain and I went and I started like, how can we figure this out, right? And that really fired my passion for learning about economic incentives and how do you put together the deal where it is financially viable, a win-win-win. So win for the client, win for the community, and win for the owner, the owner's business. And so how do we create all that together? That's really the pivotal point that took me from not buying my family's construction company. And really at the time I had 2 boys, but they were smaller, crawling around on the floor. And I went to my husband and I said, hey, could I have $2,000 out of our savings account to launch this company in 6 months? And if I can't make a go of this in 6 months, I'll get a real job. That was our deal. And I had the Trefsker's Bakery project. I was working with them, and I really wanted to lean into them and lean into that project and go all in and say, let's figure this out. Let's figure out how we get these structures together for these small businesses to expand and also create financial wealth. Because with the bakery, they had rent since 1861. Now, as a real estate investor, and I know you have a lot of them in your audience, you're thinking, oh my gosh, you bought those buildings how many times over at the time? Yes, exactly. But they were never given the opportunity to buy it. And why would you if you're the landlord, right? Just keep paying me rent. But they were also never in a place space to know how to put together the structure and to know the game, to get a step into the game. And so when they came to us, we were brought into the conversation to bring them into another development. And again, in a lease situation. And so when we started listening to what they wanted, that's where I said, this is not the development for you, but we have another opportunity. Let's lean into that. And so really working with Jeff and Martha, the owners of the bakery, and putting together the structure to get them into 3 times the space for 1.5 times the cost, it was really that big challenge of how do we not put too much debt on the business? How much do we not put too much debt on the investment, build the investment as an annuity for them, and also allow their business to grow? And I have a very supportive husband. So Charles was like, yes, let's go. So we did that. And for all the people who have small family businesses, I did give my parents a year notice. So I just wanted to let you know, I didn't give them 2 weeks, and really launched the developer for fee service, professional service we do with the Kim Group. And to me, it ignited a passion in me that helps me make sure nobody ever goes through that initial pain point pivot that I had, and enhance their life. I look at Jeff and Martha now, and now we have refinanced that building. We've bought all the investors out. They own it 100%. We've actually transitioned the property management over to them. So we taught them how to manage it, how to go about it. And now they have an investment property that's producing a good amount of money for them. And now really they have an annuity. They have a retirement plan. And that passion and that fulfillment, there's nothing like it. I mean, there's nothing like it. And I just got hooked on it and I love it. And that's what I really want to expand that with what we're creating with our online real estate development academy, is teaching people how to go through that process, how to do it, hold their hand, and guide them with mentorship.
Hiring a virtual assistant shouldn't be a guessing game. If you're ready to offload time-consuming tasks and scale your real estate investing business, my Real Estate VA Launchpad course gives you the exact roadmap to find, train, and manage high-performing VAs. Learn how to delegate like a pro and take back your time. Enroll now at adriennegreen.com/courses, and you'll find that link in the show notes below. And as you speak to that, I'm curious, what mistakes do you see new or aspiring investors commonly make?
Yes. So the big one I see is they don't take time to define their non-negotiables. That's usually the first thing. What do you have to have going into this? Like, you're not in your head, you're just like, oh yeah, they want to, almost throw the baby out with the bathwater, or whatever that expression is, right? They want to give all of it away. And no. And so what they need to do is take a step back. And, we have the time, talent, treasure triangle that I always stress to people that, like, you have time at one point, talent, and treasure. And at any given time in your life, you only have so much at each point. So if you start to go into a project and it's taking more of your time than you really have to give, and you don't have the talent, and then you got to have, the treasure to buy it, you're just way out of alignment. You're out of shift. And I'm sure everybody listening knows and can think of a time like that in their life as I explain that, right? I mean, usually every time I explain that, even your expressions too, is yeah, I've been there, right? And so go back to get in alignment. Like, how much time do you really have to dedicate to this investment? If you don't have, time, but you have a lot of treasure, what strategy does that look like? There's so many real estate strategies out there for investing. There's fix and flip and BRRRR and value add and da-da-da-da-da. You can go in, there's so many that find one that aligns with your time, talent, and treasure triangle, and then figure out what are your non-negotiables in that. Do I want to put this development deal together, this investment deal together for cash flow for me? Or do I not really care about the cash flow, but I want more of the appreciation? I'll give the investors the cash flow. I want the appreciation. I want to buy them out in 5 years and refinance. What does that look like? What control do you want in the deal? And then go into setting up your structure with that format. Because I see just so many people giving so much away when they don't have to. And there's so many investors out there that want to be part of these deals because in their time, talent, and treasure triangle, they don't have time, right? They don't have time to go find these deals or to put the effort in to manage them. And so if you're putting together the deal, they're more than happy to give you the money as long as it fits their criteria and their return and their non-negotiables. So I think that's one of the biggest one. And then, so those are pretty much the top two. And I would say the third would really be not having the right network. So where they get into the deal, and they can't put the deal together because they haven't worked on building their network to go to those people and say, okay, well, what if this? What if that? Can you help me with this? And so then they stall in the process of putting it together and the deal can die. I mean, any investment deal dies about 10 to 20 times before it closes, and you have to reinvent it. Development deals, I say, are like 20 to 50. Like they die about that many times before you get to closing. So if you don't have the right team to help you control that to closing, the deal could die and you have no clue what just happened, right? It's just kind of like, wait a second. The bakery deal, we had the main bank back out 1 month before closing. Think of that. We had 8 financial sources on that deal. The main bank, like number one, backed out a month. And we were able to go to a mortgage broker in our network and say, you've been wanting our deals for a long time. He's like, yeah, I'm on it. What do you need? What do you need? I'm like, I need you to close this deal in a month. I'm like, there's 8 financial sources. We sat down, we took a whole afternoon, walked through everything, walked through the pro forma, all the conditions, and they did it. And that's the power of a network. So that's really the third thing. I think they just build a relationship before you need to lean on the relationship.
Right. And, you give into that relationship and add value to often before you're asking. So that's a good point, the importance of the network. And I think also highlighting that deals evolve and they die, right? Like in real estate investing, it was so funny. It would be common that it's like, oh, the contract is technically dead, but we actually had a term for it in my last office of zombie contracts where it had died, but it had been resuscitated. And the broker in charge liked to call them zombie contracts. And it was a thing and it's okay.
Yeah. And especially if you're doing any type of development work where it's kind of an urban infill, or where the city has said, like, this is a district we want to enhance, develop. It reminds me of the warehouse district that we did work in, where all of a sudden the city put all these incentives in place, which were great for developers because now they could put together the financial stacks. However, the business owners were like, well, now my property is worth $1 million. It's like, you paid $20,000 for it 5 years ago. How is it all of a sudden worth $1 million? And the roof's still caving in. And it's good to like skip them, right? Like, no problem. We'll go to the next building. And they get that FOMO because it doesn't work. And if you can't educate them and structure the deal to where it's beneficial to them, and we get really creative with those opportunities, but if you can't, sometimes you skip them. And like you said, they come back to the table. Like there's a couple even real estate listings that we've made offers on for our clients that we didn't have the listing. We made an offer on it. And as you know, not all real estate agents are created equal. We had to teach the real estate agent, why the price is what it is that we're offering. What's the time frame we need? Because we had to rezone it and go through some different process. And they gave us the time, but they didn't give us the list price, like they're not list price, the offer price that we wanted. So when we went into that deal, we said, well, this is why we can't do it. We're not even going to get financed. There's no sense in going forward. And they're like, that's fine. They had their contract expire, I think 2 months after that conversation, and the owners called us to list it. And I said, the only way we're going to list it is here because here's the data. And they go, oh my gosh, this would have been so great to know. And I said, the agent didn't give this to you. Like we gave it to them to give to you, to educate you on this. And they said, no. So we listed it and we were able to start parceling it off and selling it. I mean, there's still some parcels available, but if we don't do a good job educating our clients, they can't make informed decisions.
Right, for sure. Now, to pivot a little bit, Katie, I know that you're aware of how much I love to help people leverage with technology and with virtual assistants. And so what I love, I know you've used some virtual assistants. Specifically, is there anything where virtual assistants have helped with your real estate investing that you could share to kind of give our listeners a vision of what's possible, or some of the ways that virtual assistants can be plugged in and take work off of the investor's plate?
Yes, we could probably do a whole separate episode on this one. So first of all, if the listener has not understood this at this point in time, I am a control freak. I like to have complete control of processes. I have a hard time giving stuff up, as most CEOs do. And then I also am realizing this in the process of having virtual assistants is I am not good at giving detail on instructions for tasks that I want others to do. And it's really easy to do that when they're in the office because, it's an example of like, if I say to you, go out and buy a car, go out and buy a red car, right? You're going to go out and buy a different red car. They're going to buy another. I mean, like we have literally, if you ask 10 different people, you had 10 different cars, different features, right? Automatic transmission, manual. And that's what I realized that I was not being clear about. And so when I went to my first virtual assistant, the mirror was held up. right? And I feel that that's where a lot of people, and I know you're smiling because it's like, it's like, that's where a lot of people I think get frustrated because you feel like you're talking in English, right? Like I'm telling you to go buy a red car. I'm telling you what I want, but you're not in the same breath. And so my first virtual assistant, I really had to slow down to speed up. And so I really leaned into SOPs, so standard operating procedures. And what does that really mean? Because I've created documents of like training manuals and going through the different steps. But what I started to do is it's really overwhelming when you start to look at processes and handing stuff off. So I would say for any of the listener that's a CEO or an owner of a company, a real estate investor or agent, where you want to systematize and buy back your time, virtual assistants are absolutely the way to go, especially as you're scaling your company. So, in that process of outlining these SOPs, but detailed and high level. So I'm a high D, high C on the DISC chart. So, I can go really high level and then I'm like, give me the top 3 choices and there's your answer, right? So what I did is I created an SOP overview spreadsheet that really it's where I put down any process that I want to make sure my team knows how to do from beginning to end. And I have a specific format in the SOP that says, who's the task owner? What do you need to know before this task, right? Because there's always steps before that you need to know and where to find them. And then the task, outline it, and then do a video. So like you could use Descript and Loom for those types of processes. But then in this overview spreadsheet, we rated it red light, yellow light, green light. So green light is it's done, it's good, it's in place, it's functional. All team buys off on it. Yellow is something that we need to create, but it's not really mission critical. And if it's red, it's like, Katie, we need you to your blocked time this week and create that SOP for us now. Like this is holding up something or costing us money. And in doing that, it was great because now my team can give feedback of like this, I don't know this process, or this process is not detailed enough. And when we have our weekly lock-in, we can lean into that. And eventually when you create those bases of SOPs, now your team can do them for you. And so, when we had our first VA, she was good and she was more admin. And, we've used Workergenics and we have one of their VAs. Thank you for that connection. Appreciated that. And she does our social media video editing and she's amazing. But there's a SOP for that, right? These are the hashtags you need to use. This is the medians you need to put on. And she created a content calendar for us that we look at our static posts. We look at our video posts. We look at the reels, the captions that are there, the hashtags. I mean, so much better than I could have done. I mean, I was doing all of our social media before that. I'd post on there, I'd do selfie videos she has artificial intelligence voiceovers. And I mean, I'm just like, wait, what? And she gives me scripts that says, hey, Katie, this content that we posted, and we have themes for every month for our social content. She's like, I really want you to record this and do this script. And so when you find the right VAs, or any team member, they're pushing you to be better. And if they're not, they're the wrong team member or they're in the wrong seat. Right? And so I would say that if you are a CEO or have little control problems or issues or, limitations, that think of what you need to have done or you need to know about the process so you can sleep at night. Write that down and make that your non-negotiable when you create that SOPs. So when we started turning over, transitioning and processing invoices, for example, I have a naming scheme that they have to put, and then they have to send the team this email, which we use as a signature that says, I'm done with this task. These are the questions I have. I don't know what to do with these documents, da, da, da. So now everybody on that team knows, yes, the task is done, quote, quote, but it's really not done because she still has these questions. So now we need to answer those questions so the next team member can take it on and finish the task. So, but for you going through those SOPs and saying, is this finished? And defining what's finished, you can't really properly communicate with your team. So virtual assistants are great for the value and the leverage that they can give you and the time back, because I think, not to go on a soapbox here on virtual assistants, but the one thing I think entrepreneurs struggle with is hiring people. And anytime I'm coaching an entrepreneur, you usually have to hire before you're ready to hire. And I mean that in the sense of not only operations, but cash flow, right? You have to hire that person to give you the leverage to 10x your time, but you don't have that money in the bank, and that's a painful decision. You want to talk about a pivotal point. That's another one is like, okay, I have this much runway money, but if I can get this, and this leverage, I could 10x that. Am I willing to bet on myself? That's really the question to ask. Are you willing to bet on yourself to hire the leverage, to train them, to check in with them, right? We can't just not like kids and just give them a paintbrush and paint, right? Like you to train them to step in with them to make sure like you're asking the questions. What could I do better? What do you need from me? What are you not being provided in order to complete this task? And then pour into that, because it's not a set it and forget it. People think like, oh, I hire a virtual assistant, they're magically, mind readers. Okay, show me where that is in their contract, right? But yeah. So sorry, I could go on a soapbox because I've learned so much in such a little time by adding virtual assistants to our team and making sure they're very specific in that realm. And if you're not ready, you can also share a virtual assistant too. Like that's something when I was talking with Workergenics originally, it was, hey, I may not need this person full time. And they're like, oh yeah, we can kind of share with you. We can see if another client wants somebody. And that's the benefit of using a company that does pour into some training into the virtual assistants and make sure that they're qualified. And let's just face it, the interview process, right? Especially as business owners, that is so taxing is the interview process. And to have somebody that can vet them and skill set and level set with them, you're getting somebody that is already qualified and confirmed to a point. Now you have to train them on your SOPs and your product. And, my call with Krishna this morning for our touch point, she was like, I'm going to look into that. We're going to figure out how we can do that better. And she's pushing it. She's pushing the envelope. And I love that because I want to be challenged, right? And it fuels me to be better and to do more. And that's like a passion that when it comes from within, it's contagious and it has such a great ripple effect.
Love it. That was a lot of good wisdom. Thank you so much. Now, Katie, you've put so much into this call. I really appreciate it. We are reaching the end, so I am going to wrap up with our quick fire questions. So first, what is a transformational system that you've implemented in your real estate investing business?
A transformational system, I would say, the SOP, that system and the process, it's more of a process than a system. And then really CRMs. We've introduced a CRM system that also helps us track and follow up with our clients, our customers, and engage with them in that way. But I think really that system is the SOP. And lean into it.
And then it sounds like your go-to tool for managing operations, maybe that CRM, or is it something else?
So the tool for managing operations, we've actually done Slack on some of that in the process of checking in and going forward. And I'm always constantly looking for better ways. I'll listen to some more of your podcasts and get other people's answers and look at some of those. But I'm also very cautious to not add too many new softwares and programs because I look at my phone right now and how many texting apps do I have open? Like it's overwhelming. When people are like, are you on? No, I'm not. And I really don't want to be. It's like having the voicemail at home. I don't want a phone. So
yeah. And then finally, what is a book that has been transformational in your investing journey?
Book I think that I go back to the most, like I said, I just read Outwitting the Devil. It may be there, but the one historically I've recommended is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I think it's simple things that we could do every single day that really make it, that big leap over time. And I always have it on audiobook, and it's the one book that I will read at least once a year. And I always get a different nugget out of it, a different experience, a different viewpoint. And so that was really the transformational book for me when I started my business. It's little steps, right? It's picking up the 800-pound gorilla phone and, asking and making lead generation calls, right? It's those compound effects that really grow.
Yes, I love it. Just like with leverage can be with money, and then in real estate, we can apply that to other people and our time and technology. Same thing. We know about compounding with our money and investing it. Yeah. We don't think about it with our time and with other resources as well. So great recommendation there, Katie. And as we wrap up, if people would like to connect with you more, what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, they could find us on social media at the Katie Kim.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you to our listeners. Now, remember, we're putting out 2 episodes a week, so Mondays and Thursdays. So be sure to check it out and see our next episode soon.